Well, here we are, ready for another Twin Carbs episode. I think in the last one, when we were looking at the bonnet latches, I mentioned that the handbrake was giving some concerns. As you can see here, I've stripped it all down. I'm now going to just pop into the garage and I'll show you exactly what the problem was with the old brake shoes that were in there. It's effectively I think they call it a drum and hat configuration, whereby the disc brakes, the drum that surrounds the hub on the disc itself, internally forms a drum that the brake shoes operate on. So let's have a quick look at the old shoes that came off, and then we'll get started putting new ones back on. So, looking at the handbrake parts from the BMW Z4, you can see the basic assembly looks like this. Obviously the hub comes through the centre there. I've connected that spring just to show you the individual parts. So there's a spring at the top, there's another spring at the bottom, connects the two pads, pulls it in against this device, which is effectively the actuator, and there's an adjuster here to adjust the distance that the brake shoes sit out against the inside of the brake disc. So effectively the brake discs themselves operate as a brake drum in which the shoes sit. The normal brakes sit. Calipers will be sitting on the outside of that disc, and the brake shoes for the handbrake sit on the inside there. So effectively what had happened, the handbrake shoes that were on one side are here, and as you can see they've separated completely, and the linings have separated from the shoes, in which case various different parts had broken off. These had moved around inside and wedged the wheel completely solid, so unable to turn. In addition to the springs that fit across and hold the shoes or pull the shoes together, there's other springs and clips which go through these little holes in the side of the shoe and hold that onto the back plate. So effectively what's required here, as you can see, the adjuster here is not in very good shape. In fact, that was seized solid and wasn't moving on one side. The actuator, similarly, rock solid. So very difficult to pull the brake on at all, or in fact allow it to release as well. So replacing the whole lot, what we have is first of all the replacement brake shoes, and there's a part number on there. I'll list the part numbers in the comment section below. So there are a full set of new shoes in here, and we'll be putting them on shortly. We've also, what else have we got? In this little box, two new adjusters, and there's a part number again for those. They'll probably require a bit of lubrication when they go on, just to keep them free from rusting and seizing up again. Also, a new set of actuators. These ones actually move. Cable fits in this part here. This sits in the back, and when the cable pulls, it pushes the two shoes apart. So new ones of these, again, part number for those are there. And last but not least, this part number, which is full set of springs and the fasteners to hold the brake shoes in place. So we're going to start as soon as the weather improves. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up the brake discs and the caliper mounts, and we'll see you again in a minute. So we're back outside again at the car, about to do the brakes. As you can see, I brought out the parts that we spoke about, and what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'd given this a clean up a couple of days ago. You can see there's a couple of rusty parts on it still. That's just surface rust caused by the rain the past couple of days, and I'll be greasing these up later on anyway, because effectively the friction part that the shoes, the drum shoes, sit on is around there and around this side, so that will be getting greased up, as will this part down here, if you can see it. That's the cable just protruding through there as well, and we'll show with the adjuster in a second. You can see the cable in there, so they'll be getting greased up as we go with copper grease, and I'll fit the adjuster. Now the adjuster comes in this box. There's the part number again. As far as I can see, it can go on either way round down here. Effectively, this knuckle here, which hinges the cable, so effectively cable pops in there, it closes up, and this element here, as far as I can see, and this part then rest on these two hex bolts, one either side of the cable in there. So I'll pop a bit of grease in there, and we'll connect that actuator and see. Now this is impossible to do with one hand, so I'm going to have to put my phone down. So we now have the actuator in place. It just simply hooks onto the cable that I showed you earlier. I'll put some grease in the contact points, and we're ready now to put one of the brake shoes on. This side, which is the driver's side in the UK, differs slightly from the passenger side in as much as these parts sit much lower down on the radius of the drum here. I'm not entirely sure why that is, however it should make it relatively easy for getting the top shoe on, because it will just sit there nicely. Again, I've got the shoes ready and the spring sets. You've seen the part numbers already. The spring set and the other parts are pretty good, because in fact each of the product numbers I've given you there give you a full set of springs, brake shoes, adjuster and actuators for both sides of the car, so you don't need to place multiple orders for different part numbers. It's all there in the one pack, which is absolutely great. So the brake shoes themselves, the flat end here goes round on the adjuster, and the notched end, which is at the bottom end, that end sits on the actuator. So I'll pop that in. There's a little captive pin with a spring on it that goes through the plate there, through that hole, and I'll fit that, and then we'll do the other side. So first shoe is on, pretty straightforward, particularly if you've taken the old shoes off. You'll know that this is a number 5. And it's simply push that in through the hole in the back plate, quarter of a turn, and you'll feel it lock into place. Now I'm going to reassemble the rest of it, put the springs on and put the adjuster on. Now I'm going to put this adjuster on facing, well, what I say facing down, so that the moving part is pointing down away. I'm actually doing the other side pointing up, and I'll explain that later on, explain the reason for that later. So here we are, we now have the 2 brake shoes in place, the adjuster, the springs, the clips to hold the shoes, the bottom spring and the actuator all in place. Now I've assembled it this way. Where the brake shoes make contact with the back plate, needs to be lubricated as well. The problem is that these are quite fiddly to put on, and what I didn't want to do is get the shoes covered in copper grease at the same time as I was fitting them. So what I'm going to do is just pop these out. That will bring the shoe forward on both sides one at a time, and then I can get a bit of grease in behind them, and that should do it. So I'm going to do that just now. What I'm also going to do is put a little bit copper grease again around this part here, and that gives the that's where the disc when it's fitted often binds with the hub. So that will give the next guy a chance of getting this off fairly easily. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll fit the disc and we can do some adjustment. So just to recap, this is the passenger side, and there is the adjuster. Now I've put the adjustment part at the bottom with the adjustment barrel, I guess, the bit that moves up or down depending on how you're adjusting it. I've put that barrel pointing towards the top. That's so that when I click that adjuster down the way, that I know that I'm moving the shoes in, and when I move it up the way, I'm moving it out. Now, as you'll see, I've done the other side in the opposite direction, and I'll go and show you that just now. So here we are again at the driver's side of the Z4, and you'll see that I've put the adjuster part at the top end this time rather than the bottom end as it is on the other side, and that's because I want both sides to move in the same direction when I try and adjust them. Now obviously normally when you're adjusting this, you're doing it through a hole in the wheel or a hole in the hub through a disc. You really can't see what you're doing, so that I know that I'm moving them out or in, I've reversed the adjusters on either side, so that I know if I'm moving it up the way, it's pushing the discs or pushing the brake shoes out, making it tighter, and if I'm pulling it down the way, then I know that they're loosening off. Hope that's clear. Right, so that's the discs on both sides. I should point out actually that the discs and brake pads I'm putting on this are the ones that were on it before. They're relatively new. They look a bit rusty, but that's because again they've been sitting for a wee while, but that will come off no problem, just with a wee bit of wear and tear. The trick now is to adjust the brake shoes that was just fitted and move them up until the, as you can hear me moving away. I did leave that disc in the proper position, or when I put it on, so that I could get easy access to that adjuster. So I'm just going to adjust that up on both sides. I think the instructions say put it up until the wheel doesn't turn anymore. It's pretty tight now, and then back it off, say 10 notches, and try it from there. So trial and error from here on in, but I'll come back to you soon. Okay, so that's the handbrake adjusted. What I found was that I wound it off 10 clicks. I had to wind it back in maybe another 4 clicks to get reasonable operation from the handbrake inside the car. So I would suggest that 6 clicks off after it binds is probably the way to go. Just got the I guess the brake caliper, so I've got the brake caliper mount and the caliper itself to install. Put the brakes back on, and that'll be us. I'll see you soon. Right then, that is the caliper and the caliper mount fitted. Caliper still needs to be fastened up. Caliper Carrier, as the name suggests, the brake caliper sits on. It's held in with two 16mm bolts at the back there. They get torqued to 65 Newton meters. There's 2 sliding pins which need to go in to hold the caliper to the mount. That's them there. I'm going to give them a little grease up before I put them in. I've already greased all the sort of mating points on the brake pads where they meet the caliper and the mount. I'm using Ceratec, which is sort of high temperature grease designed for ceramic discs, I think. But I had a tube of that lying around, so I thought it would be useful to use that. So I'm going to put the sliding pins in and mount there's a little spring clip that goes in the front here, and that should be us job done. Right then, that's the calipers back on, brake pads are in there, and they're held on with the sliding bolts that I showed you earlier. So the sliders are secured using a 7mm hex fitting, and they're tightened to 30 Newton meters. So just to reiterate, the torque settings for the caliper mounts, they use a 16mm bolt and they get tightened to 65 Newton meters. The sliders themselves are a 7mm hex tightened to 30 Newton meters. So we're all set. The spring clips are back in. The little fixing up here for the brake wear sensor wire, that was broken, so I've replaced it temporarily with something similar. I'll just keep an eye on that the next couple of weeks, it doesn't go astray. Only thing to do now is to put the caps in where the sliders go, which is in there, one in there, and the other one down below. That's us, and we're ready to put the wheels back on. Now, as I said previously, the car is up on jack stands just now while I was waiting for the parts for the parking brake. I took the opportunity to send the wheels off to be refurbished, so I've just had a call to tell me that they're ready. So I'm going to cover the wheels in a separate video, and we'll do a brake test and a road test once we get the car back down on the ground. Thanks for watching this. I know it's been quite a lengthy video, but hopefully it's been of some use to you. And see you again soon on Twin Carbs.